Kia ora. Hello. When we're attempting to create our impressions, it is best, in my opinion, to strive to shoot for the most accurate items first go. There are many reasons for this: cost, effort, and well, accuracy. But that is not always possible. Sometimes we need to compromise on accuracy for any number of reasons: cost, effort, availability, and access to relevant sources. This week, we're going to discuss improving our impressions and how you can still be as accurate as possible, but while compromising. But we're turning that compromise from a big C to a little c. This week, we are looking at when close enough is good enough. I'm Andrew, and this is Populaurbanum, a show where we discuss reenactment and the medieval middle class. Sometimes we have an item that we cannot find or buy. It might be too expensive, or no one makes what you want. Unless you are crafty, you often end up settling for the next best thing. Sure, you could pay some excellent craftsperson to make you a bespoke thing, but that costs cash. And who has tons of money these days? On the other hand, perhaps you may be recreating items or a whole impression from a culture where there is little material evidence remaining. What you might have is either images, fragments, secondhand written sources, or maybe all three. Do you chuck it all in and go recreate something with better evidence? Where would be the fun in that? Here, we can use our skills we picked up in the early videos in the series. If you've not watched those, I've included a playlist around about here somewhere. Also, down below, to start to build up a great impression. So be it availability of modern reproductions or period source materials, sometimes we do need to compromise to bring our impression to life. You know, I can hear the pearl clutching and gasps of horror through the screen right about now. This does come with some rules. So let's discuss how we work through this and make a functional and accurate as possible impression with the tools that we have to hand. Sometimes you are not going to be able to source the correct materials. We do live in a modern world, and we are in an international community. When I lived in Australia, access to European timbers was difficult and prohibitively expensive. Most medieval furniture was made from pine, and any hardwoods used were often native species. When it comes to fabric, on the other hand, wools are increasingly milled with some percentage of viscose or polyester in the composition. This is to save money and to help with the weaving process. We use materials like spring steel for swords and other modern alloys that are not period accurate due to their need or availability. This is where compromise comes along. There is often a rule that I like to employ. Does the item look physically jarring? If to a passerby or the casual eye, would the item stand out as too anachronistic or ahistorical? If I was to sew a gown out of 95% wool, to the casual observer, would it make any difference? But if I was to make it out of 100% polyester cotton, that would stick out like a sore toe. How do you know when to compromise and on what? This comes down to research, knowing what the accurate item you want to recreate should look like, how it is constructed, and of course the context of the period all makes a difference. Allow me to present an example. It was my birthday recently, and I wanted a kettle helmet for my militia impression. Ocean was great enough to buy me one. I had a budget though, and thanks to the Rona, shipping costs limited my choices. So I had to compromise. After extensive researching into the shapes and designs of kettle helmets by looking at art and photographs of extant pieces, I was fairly confident of what I needed. And I got this! I'm really happy with it. In this case, it is a close enough is good enough. The shape and size fits in between many of the images and extant pieces of the period. Is it a perfect? No. But is it physically jarring? I could stop here. This would be an okay and functional helmet. But we're going for great and accurate. This is the next part of softening the compromise, altering the items that we buy. Sometimes we have to buy what is available. There are a limited number of vendors in the world that make all the weird knickknacks that we want, and sometimes they're not of the best quality. So we just need to make alterations. There are a few different alterations that I need to do to make this helmet in line with a period helmet. I'll put a nice curve on the brim and see if I cannot bring the sides down more to give it the shape more in line with a 14th century helmet. Finally, I'll make a new liner. I might trim down the crown a bit and change the style of the rivets. We'll see. All this will be covered in other videos. I hope you're all juiced for kettle helmet videos because there is some more content coming your way. There are plenty of other things for my kit that I have modified to make more accurate, like my bollock dagger here. I tidied up the bollocks, made them more defined. I made the scabbard and braid to hang from my belt. Not bad for a $40 dagger. Now, we also face another problem of needing to compromise. What do you do if you need to create an item or items or impression that has little to no material evidence? This is something that is an issue for those that recreate early medieval periods. What do we do when we can speculate or imply that an item existed through written sources or art, but we have no extant material evidence? How do we create an item that is only depicted or was written about, and even then, often only in a passing fashion, as if they had no idea that people in the future would be obsessing over the minutiae of their lives? Again, we must compromise. But this is the compromise of the rigorous researcher. If the item has no material evidence, cast your net wider. We can look into neighboring cultures that exist at the time. What were they doing? Did they have similar practices and technologies? Is there any material evidence of their practices? Or the item you are trying to recreate, do they share similar cultural and fashion practices? And how easy is it to overlay? If not, did they write or depict anything about the people you are trying to depict? Do they mention the items in question? If we cannot find anything contemporary, what about just before and just after? What technologies and fashions did they have? Can they be extrapolated to understand what you are trying to achieve? Once you know what you are trying to achieve, figure out, is it possible with the tools, techniques, and materials that the people you are recreating had available? Is it culturally appropriate? Finally, once you have figured this all out, then you are onto your project. To see this in action, fellow YouTuber Ylva the Red documents how they recreate their impression with minimal material evidence. Link down below. Often in the world of reenactment, we face large vague areas which have no real answers. Because of this, we need to cobble together our best guesses. The questions regarding medieval undergarments, for example, are only just starting to be answered. For years, all questions about this matter were answered with waving and mutterings of brazen shifts until he just went away. My recent very brief dabblings into the medieval era arming garment research has shown me that there are many gaps left still unanswered and assumptions in a lot of what reenactment does. It is better that these guesses and compromises are educated instead of made on the back of wild assumptions. Hi, you're still here. That means you enjoyed the video. Remember, like, comment and subscribe. And stay safe, have fun, and keep reenacting.